Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tadatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we are still in the 9th chapter. And what verse are we on?
44.
44. Who would like to chant this evening? 44. Chapter 9, verse 44.
Shamadhyai Shravanadhyaischa Tatra Tatrochitai Kshayam Nitesmin Pratibandheta Swasya Brahmatvamashnute. Through the practice of inner control and other qualifications, and through hearing the truth and so forth, suitable for counteracting the impediments, the latter slowly perish, and one realizes his self as Brahman.
So the idea here again is we don't need to go through two processes, removing impediments and then realize the self. Actually, all we really need to do is remove the impediments. Then self-inquiry happens easily and it's very obvious. Now, practically speaking, so if I get new students, so like for example, when we do the art of meditation class, I think it's the 4th lesson, we do subject-object discrimination for the first time. We've given them a little bit, the pleasure principle, teach them to meditate, talk a little bit about the path and the goal. And then we start to do subject-object discrimination. Almost without exception, nothing happens. Now, there's one exception I have. This was a private student. And I think it was on our 3rd session together. We did subject-object discrimination. You know, my standard line. All right, now, who is it or what is it that sees the space between the thoughts and its mind just drop? Oh, just whoosh, all this Shakti just emanate. And very clear samadhi. 3 hours of sadhana total. Very rare. Very, very rare. Now, he was not yet Stita Pragya, but he had something real with which to work. Many times we start with this and it's still just an idea. Or I like the way Vidyaranya frames it. The paroksha jnanam, the indirect knowledge Brahman is. The aparoksha jnanam, I am Brahman. So when we have the mind tuned up in that radical reversal of the attention, who are you? Who sees the thoughts and the space between the thoughts? And that's only evident in a sattvic mind. So if the mind doesn't drop, people don't go, oh, or some form of that. No blame. We have obscuring material, the various kinds of impediments that Vidyaranya's been talking about. And different scriptures will name them in different ways. But basically, we've got to scrub off the barnacles. That's what needs to be done. And I would say we can really reduce it all to vairagya. That desire to give up attachment to all experiences gained through the senses and all forms of self, from the body up to and including Brahma. That's the major obfuscation. That's the problem. It's the annihilation of the vasanas here and now that's considered liberation by the wise. Remember, what's the first power of a vasana? Avarana Shakti. Ignorance, non-apprehension of my self-nature. So he's broken it down into useful little pieces that we've been going through. And then the beauty of the Vedanta, we've got so many texts. In the beginning, we point the student's attention back on the self. You think I need to become a vegetarian? All sorts of questions. And then 6 weeks later, the same idea will come around again in different language. Oh, that's so obvious. How could I have missed that? Who's had that experience? Where you didn't get it. And then weeks, months, years later, same idea comes around. And like when we go through Viveka Chudamani, if you're going through it for the second time after a while, many of us have the experience. They rewrote the book since the last time I read it. Wow, there's all this really neat stuff in here. Who's had that experience? You know. book hasn't changed. It's you and me who've changed. Our minds are more sattvic. So this is the point he's getting. All right, next verse.
Agama Agami Pratibandascha Vamadeve Samiritah Ekena Janmana Shino Tatasya Trijanmabhi. The future impediment has been well illustrated in the case of Vamadeva. He overcame it in one birth and Bharata in 3 births.
So these are the impediments that were not able to achieve self-realization in this lifetime. But as Krishna says in Gita, can't take your money with you, can't take your family with you, can't take your possessions with you, but you do take your yoga with you, meaning your mind states. And he says, my devotee is never destroyed. If you don't attain moksha in this life, you will be born again into a noble family, reunited with your knowledge, with your practice, and soon gain liberation. Next one.
Yoga Bhrashtasya Gitayam Atite Bahujanmani Pratibandhakshaya Prokto Vicharobhyanarthaka. In the Gita, it has been told that a yogi who has not attained illumination in this life may be freed from the impediment after many births.
Yeah. So he agrees with me. It's the same damn text. Okay, going on.
Prapya punyakritam lokan atmatattva vicharata shuchinam srimatam gehe sabhilasho bhijayate. Because of his practice of inquiry, such a yogi enters into the heaven of the meritorious. And then, if he is not freed from desires, he is born again in a pious and prosperous family.
Yes. So, what is it that impels us back into the world of the embodied? It is kama. What is the physical body? The physical body is an instrument for garnering experience and the satisfaction of desires. That's why you have a body. It's to gain experiences and to satisfy desires. And as long as that is operative in the psyche, you will continue to be in the world of becoming. Now, you don't have to accept this on blind faith about some future lifetime. Just look to this lifetime. Are you restless? Do you have a new project? It can be a gross project. I want to buy this. I want to acquire that. It can be a more subtle project. I want to achieve this status in my life or start this business here. Or it can be shastravasana. I want to study this particular knowledge or study that particular knowledge. No blame, but these are the subtle desires. And of course, they're going to be there. These are the things for which you mocked up this body in the first place. So we live through them. It's our prarabdha. But smash the idea. Well, this life hasn't been particularly very thrilling. It's just kind of eh. It would have been so much better if I'd been a pirate. It would have been so much better if I'd been an airline pilot. Knock yourself out. So the yogi understands the fundamental futility of that. Lives a life exhausting the existing vasanas without creating. The way this is framed, the sanchitta and the agami karma is roasted. All that's left is the karma of this life. But the jivan mukta has no real concern. Circumstances will determine what happens next. You're not propelled by, I need a new project. Now, if you still have that going on, I need a new project. No blame. Prarabdha karma, especially if you're young. Act vigorously in the world according to your swadharma, in the spirit of selfless service, renouncing our attachment to the fruits of action and our identification with the sense of agency. Get it all out, vomit it all up. Just empty out. Nothing. Next verse.
अथवा योगिनामेव कुले भवति धीमताम् निस्पृहो निस्पृहो ब्रह्म तत्त्वस्य विचारात् तद्धि दुर्लभम्. Or if he has no worldly desires, he is born in a family of yogis who have pure intellect due to their practice of enquiry into the nature of Brahman. For such a birth is hard to obtain.
Yes. So there are those very rare souls who are born into a family and they essentially have no veil of ignorance. I have only known one person like this. Her name is Grace Hooper Pettifer. Did I talk about her in this class?
Yeah, last
time. Okay. She's the only person I've ever known who was raised without a veil. The rest of us, thin or thick veil of ignorance, depending on the punya of prior lives. For some of us, Sthita Prajna comes quickly and easily. For others of us, it's a lot of work for a long time. But I always like to say, which is more beautiful, the first rose of summer or the last? They're both beautiful, just in a different time. And which is better, the rose bud or the rose bloom? Each has a beauty of its own. And listen carefully. You can't take the rosebud and start pulling at its petals to make it a rose bloom. You cannot force the psyche. Swamiji used to say it's an evolution, not a revolution. There's an old Zen proverb, hasten slowly. Have intense mumukshutva, burning desire for liberation. But just be steadfast. Keep on, keep on, keep on. And enjoy the journey. You don't want to have the idea, I'm going to suffer and do all this tapas until I get realized that, that's the way. Yoga should bring you joy. All right, next verse.
Tatram tu bodhi samyogam labhate paurvadehikam yatate chatato bhuya tasmad etadhidurlabham. He regains the yogic intellect acquired in his previous birth and so strives more vigorously. This birth is indeed hard to achieve.
Yes. So if you've got weak mumushutva and a lot of obscuring kleshas, afflictions, these impediments, we do our best, no blame. This work takes lifetimes. Now, let me push back on Vidyaranya a bit. I have known people, especially Indians, because of the great honor given the Mahatma. They look at the realized person or even just a Swami, oh, such a great person, giving up the world. Not for me. I'm just an ordinary guy or a gal with worldly desires. I will worship the Lord the best I can, and in another life, maybe. And their low yogic self-esteem, I don't know how else to put it, keeps them from striving hard for liberation. But then in the larger frame, that's where they are in the journey. And then practically speaking, you don't find it too much in an environment like our Sangha. But where there's an ashram or there's a big community, many people get involved in the spiritual life for all sorts of worldly desires, largely connection. What they want is connection with other people. They think maybe if I join a spiritual community, I'll get that connection. But if you really want self-realization, keep steady focus on the goal. Next verse.
Purvam पूर्वाभ्यासेन तेनैव क्रियते ह्यवशोऽपि सः अनेकजन्मसंसिद्ध ततो याति परां गतिम्. He is borne on by the momentum of his yogic practices in the previous birth, even against his inclination. Thus, after many births, he achieves perfection and as a result, is liberated.
Purvabhyasena. Purvam abhyasena. By means of prior practice, he's impelled on. Now, in a sense, you don't need to know whether or not you did yoga in another life. Some of us have intuitions that, oh, I did this in a prior life, perhaps, or studied that in a prior life. But all of it's right here, right now. You don't need to have the direct memory. And my suggestion, be steadfast. Be steadfast. I tell people I've been a crappy yogi, made so many mistakes, but I've been steadfast on the path. I just keep at it. Just keep at it. And the fruits will come if you're steadfast on the path. Don't give up. Understanding, even if self-realization or steady wisdom does not happen this lifetime, yoga is still the most intelligent way to live your life. Next verse.
ब्रह्मलोकामिवाञ्छायां सम्यक् सत्यां निरुध्यतां विचारयेत्यात्मानं न तु साक्षात् करोत्ययम्. A man who has a strong desire for Brahmaloka but suppresses it and practices inquiry about the self will not have realization.
So here, a strong desire for Brahmaloka. I'm not sure exactly how to interpret that as a state of mind. I'm going to guess that I want to have some super sensuous experience in an afterlife. There are people, for example, for whom paying the rent is scarier than dying. I just can't deal with this world. I want to get out. Because this world is so overwhelming and painful. All you have to do is walk around the lake or underneath the freeway overpass. There are people who enter the spiritual life and what they want is a super sensuous experience. Want to get high. And there are people who will do practices, kriyas of various kinds, list out, but they do not give up attachments and aversions to the world. So common. I was talking with a fellow. His family are all Meher Baba devotees, and I guess there's an ashram back near Myrtle Beach, North Carolina, I think it is. He was back there. Oh, it was so blissful, and everybody was so happy, and he was singing and making music, and it was so easy to just feel so connected to Baba. That's what he said. Comes back here. He's got all these things he's got to deal with the fact that he doesn't have a job right now, doesn't like his landlord, he's single. What happened? Well, here he's getting the fruit of his vasanas. This is where he lives. He had momentary escape. So what does his mind say? Well, maybe I should move to Myrtle Beach. Said to it, nah. But I promise you, if you move to Myrtle Beach, a matter of 6 months or a year, all the same issues you have here in Oakland, there in Myrtle Beach. Do you understand that? Because the cause is my mind. So that's my take on this. Is there commentary in there at all on that verse?
It just says the essential condition is total absence of desires, not their repression.
Okay. So how do we gain mature freedom from desire? Only through insight. We detach ourselves from the chaos of the sense objects through a steady observation of their defects. Not that such and such is bad and such is disgusting, but no. It's deep, deep understanding of what I call the pleasure principle. What's it feel like to want something you don't have? It hurts. Yoga says there's no other suffering other than raga, wanting something you don't have, dvesha, trying to get rid of something you don't like, moha, delusion, bhaya, fear. Have what I want, but I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. Don't believe me. Look to your direct experience. So, yoga is a process of mature dispassion, mature renunciation through a deep, deep insight into the human condition. Make friends with our suffering. When I'm moving through the world and I'm having a terrible time, it's never out there. It is always raga, dvesha, bhaya. And own your own ananda. When you get what you want, you satisfy a desire, and you're happy. That's a taste of yourself. That's all it is. You've just used a medium to get there. Cultivate a non-mediated experience. Such is the power of Maya. Having heard this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, Whoa, look at the shiny widget. There I go. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
वेदांत विज्ञान सुनिः चित्तार्था इति शास्त्रत ब्रह्मलोके सकल्पान्ते ब्रह्मणा सह मुच्यते. As the scriptures say, the monk who has well ascertained the meaning of Vedanta goes to the realm of Brahma and is released at the end of the four yugas along with Brahma.
So that's this idea of videha moksha. The monk who does not attain self-realization, but has some degree of renunciation in this life, when he or she dies, goes to Brahmaloka and is liberated at the end of the age. Is this true or not? I don't know. This is the eschatology that's put forward in the Vedic literature. I have a dear friend who's a Roman Catholic priest. Of course, has lived a life of being celibate and service and all this sort of stuff. And he said once, when I die and I find out there's no heaven, I'm going to be really pissed. What do we know for sure? You may know for sure. I do not know. So the Jivan Mukta is not worried about the eschaton, the end days. Be happy right here, right now, in this very body. How do I do that? Let go. Keep your heart open. Stay out of the dead past and the unborn future. Realize that nothing touches you, the witness in consciousness. The world is just a light show, trinkets and baubles, virtual reality, pretty to look at. But always changing, always temporary. You decide. You decide what kind of life you want to live. What should I do with my life? Well, try to be useful. You will find that if you live a life of service, it's quite rewarding. Next verse.
केषाञ्चित् विचारोऽपि कर्मणा प्रतिबध्यते श्रवणायापि बहुभिः यो न लभ्य इति श्रुते. In some cases, the inquiry itself is impeded because of the result of their evil deeds. As the Shruti says, even to hear about him, it is not available to many.
Yes. So sometimes we become fallen yogis. We get caught up in ways of living that are not in alignment with the Dharma. We may have trouble with alcohol or drugs. You might have propensities for criminality. Might have a little bit of larceny in your soul and get busted. All sorts of things can happen. And that makes continuing sadhana difficult. Sometimes we have tremendous damage because of our families of origin. PTSD, we might come from a family of intense abuse, physical abuse, or sexual abuse. Very difficult sometimes to resolve these things. Many people end up in the spiritual life or religious life as a way to avoid all this trauma. I wouldn't call these evil deeds, but I would call these deep wounds. It can be impediments. Makes sadhana more difficult. Next verse.
अत्यंत बुद्धिमान ध्यात्वा सामग्र्या वाप्य संभवात यो विचारम न लभते ब्रह्मोपासीत सोनिशम. The man cannot practice inquiry either due to extreme dullness of intellect or for want of other favorable circumstances. Let him always keep the mind on Brahman.
Yes. So if we have a dull intellect and the mind will not drop, or we have other impediments, perhaps we have some physical issue that's going on, things like clinical depression we would talk about today, or anxiety, or maybe you've got some condition that gives you chronic pain, makes doing sadhana difficult. Then what do we do? You may not even be able to do karma yoga because of, say, a disability or age. But you can always practice bhakti yoga. Think of God as you understand God, as much as you can, as often as you can. Turn all the problems of your life over to the Lord. In this country, one of the greatest musical traditions we have is the African American spiritual, and then its later manifestation, gospel music. But the older forms, the African American spiritual, is the prayers of people going through intense suffering. How did these people deal with their suffering? By endeavoring to keep their minds fixed on Jesus, on God as they understood God. And it works. It works. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
निर्गुण ब्रह्मतत्त्वस्य च ह्युपास्ते रसंभवः सगुणब्रह्मणि वात्र प्रत्ययावृत्तिसंभवात्. As it is possible to continue the thought current regarding Brahman with attributes, meditation on the attributeless Brahman also is not impossible.
Yes. So, what Krishna says in Gita, Arjuna asks him, Lord, which is better? Worshipping the Lord with a form, meaning with attributes, or in its formless nature? And Krishna responds and he says, both are valid and both ways are available to a person. But for the embodied, worshiping the formless is very difficult. For them, worshiping the Lord with attributes, with a form, is better. Now, when he says embodied, doesn't mean that you've just got a physical body. Some of the Bhakta traditions say Krishna has clearly said, don't be an Advaitin. You worship the Lord with a form. You've been told to do this because you have a body. That's not necessarily the deepest meaning. I would say when Krishna says the embodied, he means ego identified with the body. So a personal God is as real as your ego, as real as your body, mind, intellect. So if you think you're a person, and you think the body is you, probably you'll do better turning your will and your life over to the care of God as you may not even understand God. Confronting how powerless I am over people, places, things, and conditions. Shorthand form. I can't, he can, I think I'll let him. God, take me where you want me to go. Let me meet who you want me to meet. Tell me what you want me to say. Keep me out of your way. Deep prayers of surrender. That's the best for a person who's deeply identified with the body. Now, we may have moments of meditation, personal sense of self disappears, and the form of God also fades away. That great injunction, Atma, Brahma, this self is Brahman, becomes clear and useful. So to sum up what Vidyaranya is saying, do not let philosophical inconsistency be an impediment to feeling better. I can't ask God for help. I don't believe there is a personal God. It's all superstition. You're screwed if that's your attitude. If you're in trouble and you think you're a body, remember, a personal God is as real as your ego. If you can drop that personal sense of self. Then the personal goes away. Very, very important point in sadhana. Because many of us are in what I call the yo-yo state. Sometimes I'm very clear, know exactly what's going on, who I am deep inside. Sometimes I fall and I'm triggered and I'm identified. And just saying it's not real, it's not real, it's not real doesn't do a whole lot of good. Just making sense. You don't have to have philosophical consistency. It's not required. Next verse.
Avang manasagam yattan. Avang manasagam yattat. No pasyamiti chet tada. Avang manasagam yasya. Vedanam na cha sambhavet. Doubt. Brahman is beyond speech and mind, and so cannot be meditated upon. Reality, then there reply, then there can be no knowledge of Brahman too.
So if someone says you can't meditate on Brahman because it is without qualities, therefore you can't meditate on it, Vidyaranya's reply is then, there's no knowledge. But understand the direct experience of Brahman is not known, not apprehended through the known instruments of perception, meaning you do not see, hear, taste, touch, smell, emote, or think yourself. But you are not unknown. Who sees the phone? I do. That's yourself. Nobody doubts their existence. Unless you're a Shunyavadan, school of Buddhists. Do you exist? No, I know I don't exist. And who knows it? I know it. You've had the direct experience of your own non-existence? Oh, absolutely. It's ridiculous. Let me prove it to you. So, Ganesh, 10 minutes ago, you ceased to exist for 10 minutes. Do you have any experience of that?
No.
You can't know that you didn't exist. Because there would be no one there to know that you didn't exist. My direct experience is aham is an eternal factor. Now the ego comes and goes. But here's the great cosmic joke. That's the only real knowledge. It cannot be gained. It cannot be lost. Everybody already has it. But then there's the deep insight, the pratyabhignana that happens to the intellect. The intellect can reflect on direct experience. You rub your hands together. The instrument for hand rubbing is hands. If after the fact I say, was it stasis or motion? It was motion. Did it make your hands warm or cool? Made them warmer. That process is called reflection. You can reflect on an experience that you've directly had. You cannot reflect on an experience you have not had. Puneet, did I have lunch today? I don't know. Why not? I wasn't there. You weren't there. You cannot reflect on that experience. Now, are you you? No. We're performing an action of reflection on direct experience in a quiet mind, with the attentive faculty turns towards the self. Does your self have any shape, any color, any edges, any dimensions? Mind you, if you have any objective phenomena, that's not it. Oh. Self is Chidakash. It's like the space of just awareness. No form, no qualities, no colors, no shapes, no beginning, no end. I can see that. This process, when I go through it, is called reflection. And as the result of that, buddhi becomes buddha. Subtle intellect becomes awake. And that doesn't change yourself. It is both knowable and unknowable. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
पागाद्यगोचराकारम् इत्येवं वदि वेत्यसौ वागाद्यगोचराकारम् इत्युपासीतनो कुतः. Doubt. Brahman is known as beyond speech and mind. Reply. Then why cannot Brahman be meditated upon as beyond speech and mind?
Yes. So here the doubter is all caught up in logic. If it's beyond everything, then it's unknowable. You can't meditate on it. His assumption is, I can only meditate on an object. Now, what we're meditating on in the beginning, I would call this jnana abhyasa, the practice of knowledge. So what I'm meditating on in the beginning, yes, it's my ideas of Brahman. It's okay. Brahman is not the body, not the prana, not the mind, not the intellect, not the ego. Okay. Those are ideas. What is it? It is birthless. It is changeless. It is formless. It is like space. It is endless and eternally the self. Those are ideas. They are not Brahman. They are ideas of Brahman. And here is where we have to understand one of the greatest pitfalls in this work. If we think of the self just as an idea, what do you think of the self? Well, this is what I think of the self. Well, the scriptures say this about the self, and I have the best understanding about the self. Like it's floating in space, like it's an idea. That will do nothing to free us. We must use these meditation verses to examine what is. Let me give you a worldly example. I can say to you, when you breathe, you can feel the air passing through your nostrils above your upper lip. Isn't that a good idea? That's different than take a deep breath through your nose. Now put your attention on the breath, going in and out. Can you feel the breath in? There's a big difference between hearing about that practice and actually doing that. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
सगुणत्वमुपास्यत्वा यदि वेद्यत् ततोऽपि तत् वेद्यं चेलक्षणावृत्त्या लक्षितं samupasyatam. Doubt. If Brahman can be meditated upon, he becomes invested with attributes. Reply. That happens if he is taken as knowable. Doubt. Brahman is knowable by lakshana, indirect indication. Reply. Then meditate upon Brahman that way, that is by lakshana.
So here Vidyaranya is saying, don't make it complicated. In the beginning, you can meditate on Brahman, on the self. Lakshana means by inference. So if we start with this idea, it is not anything that is knowable. It is always knowing itself. It is the knower. Oh, Guruji, I feel so stupid. Now let's analyze that. Do you know the feeling of being stupid? Oh, yes. Who knows it? I do. So stupid is not you. Stupid is something you know. Oh. Now let's not pay attention to the feeling of being stupid. Who knows the feeling of being stupid? Inside you. What are you like? I'm stupid. Okay. What the scriptures say is you're not stupid. You are beyond stupidity. You are the Lord. Okay. What are you? Oh, I'm smart. Smart is another mind state. Okay. Who knows the idea of smart? Mm-hmm. Who are you? I don't know. Who knows the thought? I don't know. I don't. Who are you? What are you? So inference is fine. This is the working of the Vedanta, where we separate the wheat from the chaff. We separate the not self from the self. That's the process. Over and over and over. Oh, I think I know, Guruji. Who is it who thinks he knows? Me. So 10 minutes ago you were stupid. Now you know, yes, I know. Did you change? No. So you know knowing ideas. What is that eternal? It's always Krishna. Okay. Come back tomorrow. Such is the process. All right, one more.
ब्रह्म विद्धितदेवत्वं न त्विदं यदुपासते इति श्रुतेरुपास्यत्वं निषिद्धं ब्रह्मणो यदि. Doubt. The Shruti saying, know that alone to be Brahman, which is beyond the range of speech and mind, and not that which the people worship, prohibits meditation on Brahman.
So the doubter here, we're going to have to take the next one too, thinks that Brahman cannot be meditated on because of this particular, I think it's from Kena Upanishad. It is not that which you, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is not that which you worship here. And that doesn't mean you cannot meditate on Brahman properly. Like that exercise I just went through. Let's see what Vidyaranya says in the next verse.
Viditadanyadeveti Shrutervedyatvamasya na yatha shrutyaiva vedyam chet tatha shrutpapyupasyatam. Reply. Equally, Brahman cannot be an object of knowledge. For the Shruti says Brahman is other than that which can be known. Doubt. The Shruti also says that Brahman can be known. Reply. So also it says that he can be meditated upon. So meditate on him, basing upon those Vedic texts.
Yes. So Vidyaranya's really smart. He agrees with me. Idea here is it is unknowable by the means of knowledge. It is not a form of God, but it is not unknown. In fact, it is always known as aham. It is like trying to see your eyes. No person has ever seen their eyes. Yet you see. The objector is saying, the scriptures say you can't see your eyes, therefore everybody's blind. No. Do you see the phone? Yeah, I see the phone. What do you see the phone with? My eyes. And in the subtle intellect, we have the pratyabhijnana, the aha, the recognition. Oh, there's nothing there. Yet it shines as me. Prakash, the light of pure. And it's eternally so. Okay. What verse are we on for next week?
We are on 61.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Om.